Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechtas Avodah Zarah daf Ches. We are going to begin on Ches Amud Aleph by the new Mishnah. Says the Masnisin, Ve'elu Eidehen Shel Avodah. So this is a list of actual holidays in which the idol worshippers were engaged in their various forms of Avodah Zarah. And therefore, because of this, it's important for us to know, as Rashi says, there's certain Gimel Yomim Lifneim, that you're not allowed to engage in various business practices, as we saw in the previous Mishnah. And we already heard a little bit about this previously. One is called Kal Nada, V'Satroina, V'Kartisim. And those are few of the holidays in which all of them are going to be explained in the Gemara exactly what they are. And then it says V'Yoim Genusya Shel Malcheihem, and also this special day for the kings, V'Yom Halida V'Yom Hamisa Divrei Meir, the day that they were born, the day that they died. All these things are great forms of celebration. Says Rashi, Shel Melch Oisin Kol Bnei Malchuso Yom Eid Mishal Shana. So they would be makriv sacrifices, as Rashi says, on the anniversary, almost like we'll have like a yort site, and they would worship idols on these days. So any misa which there is sreifa attached to it, says Rashi, of kli tashmisho kederach malachim, that they would burn the kli that the which was used, which was the way of the kings. Yesh bo avodas kachavim, says Rashi. Koimer oisa hayoyim avdan avodas kachavim, v'hu lehen yoyim id. So this was considered to be a day of also of idol worship. Any time there was a death in which there was some type of ceremony, so that was also used as a day of idol worship. Shein ba sreifa in ba avodas kachavim. So there's some notion that again they would burn all the different vessels of the things that the kings used to use, because we wouldn't allow them to be reused after their death. So that was like another form of ceremony, which also was a form of idol worship, and therefore that was not allowed to be done. I can't do business before that. Avol yoim tegalachas, but the day that they cut the zikainai, they cut the beard. And Rashi says, Shenzman Kavul Rabbim, not everyone knows about this, it's not a set time. And says Rashi, Elokol Echad Be'echad, Kishimegaleach Oisa Yom Eid. The day in which they do their own ceremony, that's when they have their own private holiday, but it's not something which is more publicized, or Bluriyasai, which was, as we find many times, is a special haircut in which has to do with the cutting of in the back of the hair, or leaving some of the hair in a special way, which was specified as a form of idol worship. And that was also a day in which was like a special day for them. The Yom She'olah Boi Min Hayom, or a day in which they came from the sea, as Rashi says, Makrib Zvachim Ovis Kachavim Al Davar Shenitzal, because they felt that the waters are very dangerous to travel, and therefore if they made it back to dry land, which they wanted to express appreciation to their idols, so that was a day that they would do this. But again, all these are not set days, because obviously a person can travel on specific times individually. Also, it's almost similar to being Birchas HaGaimel. So under certain times, which was dangerous, especially being in jail, in which it's not like the prison system nowadays where eventually you could be freed. There you could just be thrown into a pit, and who knows how long. So therefore it was reason for them to celebrate. But again, these are all specific individual things, and therefore the din is different. And also, when it comes to an idol worshiper who makes a party for his son, so because it's so unique, it's only that day, and not, as Rashi says, Til chashivi kuli hai. So it's not like as chashiv as like a national holiday, if you will, of idol worship, because it's more individualized, and therefore because of that, it's only that day is usher to do business, and it's dafka with them. But anyone else, it's okay. It says so what is this first celebration of idol worship? So what is this day? Kal Nida is Ches Yomim Achar Tekufa. This is 8 days after Tekufas Teves, as Rashi says, Vayoisen Ches Yomim Ritzufim Id. They would actually have an 8-day holiday. It was consecutive for 8 days. Sat Ranura is Ches Yomim Lifnei Tekufa. This took place 8 days before the Tekufa. So the question is, the Simonech, how are you going to remember which holiday was it before the Tekufa that it started, which one's after? So we had this before. Just like when it comes to Adam Harishain, it says the word Achar first. And I don't think Rashi explained this clearly as it says it here. Achar Ksiv Bereisha. First it says Achar. Masisanami Hanach Nali Achar Tekufa Tan Bereisha. So the one which is the Tekufa, the celebration which is after the Tekufa, which is Kal Nida, so that is first, even though it says Achor, and then Lifnei is afterwards. So therefore, again, that's just a mnemonic for us to be able to remember this order. Achor v'kedem sartani. Okay, v'goymer tanarbam. So so he started seeing that it started getting darker and darker. It was getting closer to the winter solstice. Oimer oili shema b'shvil shesarchati oilam choshech ba'adi v'choyz l'toy b'vo. So he thought this was part of his punishment from Tishrei until Teves. He noticed that it started getting darker and darker, and he thought that the world would just continue to get dark. He didn't know the very first time that there was some type of cycle that after December 21st, all of a sudden it starts getting more days, more sunlight. So v'zuhi misa sheniknasolai min hashamayim. This is like the punishment, the death penalty, if you will, is that I'm going to be put in the dark. So he fasted for 8 days, and he was also engrossed in prayer. Okay, fine. The question is that part of the Girsa? Kivan Shara Tekufas Tavis. Once he saw Tavis came, all of a sudden he started noticing that the days became a little bit longer. He recognized that this is just part of nature. And therefore he celebrated with these 8 days. The following year, so he made for these and for these, he made them into Yomim Tovim, who kavam l'shem shemayim. So obviously Adam Rishon did a l'shem shemayim because it was a way for him to express his joy and appreciation. However, they did it for a different reason. They celebrated 8 days after the Kufa in order to be able to show appreciation to their idols. But the reality is the starting point actually was a good thing. He noticed again that this was part of nature, and he wanted to express his appreciation, but unfortunately, was being misused. Now, now let's understand. There's a machlokas actually that is brought down in Masechtas Rosh Hashanah, that when exactly was the world created? Was it created on Tishrei? So Yomi Zuti Chaza, Yomi Richi Akati Chaza. So you can understand that once it's already Tishrei, let's call it September, so at that point, the summer solstice, which took place in June 21st, had already officially existed. Well, it didn't happen yet, but the days, just starting already from the beginning of his life, he always saw that every day it just kept getting a little bit darker. So again, in Tishrei, it's Nishkaferlach, because, okay, sun sets at 7 o'clock or whatever. But all of a sudden it starts getting dark at 6, then at 5, and then almost 4 o'clock. So that makes sense. So he saw the days getting short. Aricha katu l'chazal, l'mandir, b'minisa nivra oilam, chachazal yom azuta b'yomei ariche. It's hard to understand because, again, if he was already born in Nisan, which is, let's call it April, so the days are getting longer. So he already noticed that the days were getting longer. And then, obviously, if this is true, then all of a sudden he saw the days getting shorter. So he should have already realized that even though the days are getting shorter, probably it's going to get longer again. So the Havi Zuti Kuli Hai Luchaza. So he said that it was to see it getting so dark that he never saw. And therefore it still startled him. Tanaban. So the day that Adam Rishon was born, Kivan Shishakal Chama, once it started getting dark, Oimer Oili Shibishvil Sharachti Oyam Choshech Badi. Vyas Oyam Matoy Bavo. Vizuhi Misa Sheniknasa Alaim in Hashemayim. So again, similar idea. He saw the sun. He didn't understand there was a concept of dark. What's darkness? Right? He only knew light. That's all he ever saw. So therefore, see the light. That so he was perplexed when he saw it's getting dark, and it was dark. So Hayosh B'Tainis Aboicha Kol Alai was crying. B'Chava Aboicha Kenegdai, and also his wife cried. Kivan Shalom Shachar. Once the first sunrise came, Oimer Min Hagashal Oyom Hu Amad V'Hikriv Shor. So he was makriv a carbon to show his appreciation. Shikarnav koidmin le parsioisa, that its horns came before its hooves, which is an expression basically that it was born fully grown. Says Rashi, Dermamar kol ma'isa bereshis b'koid masa nivra shor im karna migudolim kivan shiatza roisha tchila nimser karnasav koidamas le parsioisa. Okay. Anyway, the point is that they were created as a complete being. Shenemar, but Tetiv Hashem Mishor Par. That it says in Sefer Tehillim, but Titav Hashem Mishor Par Makrin Mafs. So what did he do? He expressed appreciation for Kadosh Baruch Hu when he brought the carbon, and it was first the Karen, the horn came before the mafris, before its hooves. Which is interesting. It almost sounds maybe it was a unicorn, right? That the first carbon that he brought actually had only one horn. Makrin mafris. Makrin tartimash. That sounds like there was two horns. So Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak makrin ksiv, which sounds like one horn. Okay. Amrav masna roimi shiasa kalnada v'chol yoris hasmucha isla. When it came to Rome, when they made this particular holiday and all the cities that were around Rome, mishtabda isla, they also would serve. Says Rashi, l'roimi yoidin Anu Shehain Mishabda Isla Roimi Litain Hamas, and they would be given taxes, Leibahim Kol Sarchehem, for their needs of Oisen the Euros in Oisen Kalnada. Okay, so Oisen the Euros Asuros O Mutaros. So the question is, these cities, are they Asur or Mutter? In other words, these nearby cities pay taxes to Rome and are subordinate to them, but it isn't their holiday. So the question is, again, as Rashi says, we know that these cities, they do pay taxes of Oisen Euros in Oisen Kaldada, but they don't celebrate the holiday. So the question is, as they are subordinate to Rome, maybe you would think the din is you also can't do business with them. Alternatively, you can say, well, maybe the whole Isser is only in the cities in which their people are actually being oivid this idol worship on this particular holiday. But these cities that are around Rome, perhaps it's okay. It says that it's usher, it's mashma for all, including even people around, even if they don't even celebrate the holiday. The whole Isser is only the people in Rome, because they're the ones that are actually serving this Avodah Zarah. So it's kind of Rabbi Yochanan. So actually, we're going to see a support to the sheet of Rabbi Yochanan that the reality is that it's the whole Isser is dafka, an individual who mamish is celebrating this holiday. Even though it's true that the Romans, they celebrate this holiday. And the truth is, all the nearby cities are indebted to Rome and they're subordinate to them. The reality is that the Isser is only to them, that city in Rome, because they're the ones that worship the idols. Okay. And then the Gemara continues with Satranlia, and as well as Vikar Tasim, Yoim Gnustia, Shel Malcheim, Yom Shehumuch Boy Melech Afanav. So the Yom Shehumuch Boy Melech, and then all these different holidays, as well as the day in which the king is reigned as a king, acknowledged as a king. So Bafanav Aser. So the din is that doing any business with them, of course, on the day is Aser, but even before that. However, all the holiday, anything afterwards, it's okay. Also, some mishnah of Noi, when it comes to an individual person who makes a party for her son, and also el oisa yom oisa ish, which sounds like again the the sefer of a mishnah. Ravashi, Afanam and Tanina, Tigatani Yom Tigalachas is a kaina, when a person cuts his beard, which again, Mashem wrote as Kachavim, Oburi Yasoi, or to make this special haircut, Yom Shiasa Boy, Min Hayom, Yotza Shatsa Min Besa Asurin, the person leaves sea, spared from prison, and also Oisa Yom Bovad, the Oisa Ish. Now, Bishlam Oisa Yom, I can understand only that day. What does that come to exclude? It comes to exclude before and afterwards. El Oisa Ish, that individual Fuki Mai, Lav is it not? La Fuki Mishavadav Shmamina. It's obviously coming to exclude only those who serve it. However, anyone else not. So again, this is clear support to Rabbi Yochanan that the cities which were subordinate to Rome were mutter. Okay, TA20. So question is like this. I got it wrong. Akum shiasa mishnah of noi in asr el oisa hayom ve'oisa ish. So ha'oisa ish lemuti mai. So it's anoshim hamishubadim loy v'chashin d'mamati lei l'miflach. We're not concerned that they may end up worshiping idols because that's not the holiday that they celebrate, and therefore it is allowed. Okay. Question TB21. Akam shasa mishnah of noi mimatai aser l'soid etzlo v'ad masai aser. So this is what I wrote. Yesh hevdel im zeh stam or im hifresh l'shem kach mikol makom im stam ad shlosh kiyom. Okay, we didn't do this yet. Okay, let's keep going. Tanya, Rabbi Shmuel Oimer Yisrael shebechutz haaretz, the Yidden that are outside of Eretz Yisrael. So oivdei avodas kachavim b'taharahem. So the people that are avodas kachavim are actually tahar. What does that mean? It says Rashi. So b'yoyim mishnah b'noi palach avodas kachavim al shegiel lakach. Rather, one second. We did that Rashi already. Okay. So it says Rashi, but Tahara, Choimer below Kavana. So even if they do worship, it's without real intention. Vin Shemayim Alev. They basically don't really have much intention. They're not like hard-hitting idol worshippers. Ketzad of Chachavim Shiasa Mishneh Levnoi. Ketzad. So Ovid of Chachavim Shiasa Mishneh Levnoi. Let's say you have a person who makes a party. V'zimin kol haYehudim shebe'iroi, and he invites all the Yidden in the city. Alpha b'shoichin misholahen. V'shois misholahen, even though you're eating from them and drinking from them. V'sham misholahen, it's their waiter. Oyimid lifnehem, that's standing in front of them. Ma'alem akosev kil ochlo mezivchem esim. It doesn't make any difference. You're still not allowed to partake. Shenemar b'kor locha v'yochalta mezivchoi. Which is quoting in Sefer Shemos, Pen Tichros Bris. Let's say you have a bris, or Yoshev Aretz, the people that are in the city, the Zonu Achrei Elhehen, and they worship idols, Zavchul Elheim, they bring sacrifices, the Karlacha, and they call to you, V'yachalta Mizivchai, and you'll think you're eating from their Zevach. Even though the truth is, you're not actually doing that, because let's say you brought everything that you were supposed to bring, it doesn't make any difference because you're still together with them. And therefore it's ki'ilu in the pasuk that you're actually eating from their zevach. The ema adi ochel, maybe it's only what you actually eat. So Rabbi imkein nemakra v'yachalta mizivcha, it should say that you ate from the zevach. My vikar locha, that they call to you, mishas kriya, even just inviting you, even if you don't even partake, it doesn't make any difference. The fact that you're there, Hilkach, as we continue on Chesem and Beis, therefore, the din is, Kol Tlasin Yoimin, this is what we were saying before, all 30 days following the wedding, Bein Armalei Machmas Halula, Bein Loy Armalei Machmas Halula Aser. It doesn't make any difference. Even if the Ovik HaChavim said to the Israel, it's not even because of the party, right? Says Rashi, being lomer mistama, halul mechavin, because if it's within 30 days, why do you think he's inviting you to some party? That's probably for his kid's wedding, and to celebrate it for the first 30 days. So the first 30 days is awesome. It depends. After 30 days, if he says it's machmas halul, then it's always going to be aser. But if he doesn't specify, it's just stam, he invites you, then after 30 days it's okay. So is that forever? Like 20 years later? Let's say he goes, I'm having a party for my son's 20th anniversary. No, it's ad triasa yarchi shaita. It's only 12 months. So before the wedding, when is it aser? So Papa Mishmida Rava Machi Ramus Are Beis it's before they start preparing, and of course it's Rav Papa, who's the big beer expert, before they were preparing the beer for the wedding, which of course requires hops and barley, etc., etc. So that was the mixture for soaking the barley to make beer and hops or whatever it is. So that's what they would do. Well, Basa Triaser, I guess that was a big deal to make beer for a wedding. Well, Basa Triaser Yarchi Shaita Shari. Is it true after 12 months it's okay? So he went to this idol worshipper's house. Well, Basa Triaser Yarchi Shaita. It was after 12 months. With Shami the Oidi, he heard that he was acknowledging Upiresh, and he specified that it was for the sake of his son's long wedding, which took place a long time ago. He still didn't eat. Because there's no Adam Choshev, says Rashi, by having such an Adam Choshev at the table, so therefore that would have extended even beyond 12 months. But someone was a stam yid, so then after 12 months, even machmas hilula, then you would be able to attend. Obviously, this means you can eat non-kosher food, but it means that everything else is okay. Okay, let's look at question 5. Oyevit kachovim shiasa hilula v'noi, ad masai acher ha-hilula asul l'shtativ imo besuda tavi machmas halulu. So, if he was mafresh, if he was expressed himself, it's for the wedding until 12 months. Stam kol shloishim yom. Otherwise, it's 30 days. Let's see what I wrote over here. So yesh hevdel im zeh stam no im hifresh l'shem kach. Kol makom im stam ad shloishim yom v'im hifresh ad yud beis chodesh. And I'm just going to add over here, even though this is not part of it, the adam choshev afilu achar yud beis chodesh asur. Okay, so we have that exception, so might as well bring it down as well, even though in their answers they didn't require that as part of the answer. Okay, all right, let's keep going. So then the Mishnah brought down another holiday, which is the Kartas. So my Kartasim, what exactly was that? So Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel, Yoim, this is referring to the day Shetafsabo Roimi Malchus. It's a day in which the Roman Empire conquered a particular enemy. So because of, and Rashi says, they were fighting Im Yavanim, the Romans fought against the Greeks, and we know that even though the Syrian Greeks were very powerful, but eventually the Romans took over, and that was a very special day for Rome. And therefore, that was a day which was also Asr. And because they used it as a form of worshiping their idols. Losanya, Kartasim, Viyoim Shetav Saboy Roimi Malchus. It sounds like they're two separate days. So Rav Yosef, Shtei Tfisais, Tav Saroimi. There's actually two times in which they conquered. There was two successful battles, and therefore they're both acknowledged. Achas Bimei Cleopatra Malchusa. One was in the days of Cleopatra, which of course we know of Alexandra. And it says Rashi, V'nilchamu Romoyim Ima. The Romans fought with her. V'nitzchua, and were successful. The Tavsohen HaMalucha. So therefore, that is one thing to acknowledge, that they were successful against Egypt. So they didn't limit themselves to who they fought against. So therefore, even there was two times in which they acknowledged their success. The Chiyas Rabdimi Omer Klasin V'Train Kirby Avdu Ramoy Bahadi Yavani. There was actually a total of 32 battles that the Romans were engaged in fighting against the Greeks. And as many times that they kept fighting, they never overtook them. They weren't successful. Ad de Shatfinhu Yisrael Bahadaihu, which is interesting enough. The Romans couldn't defeat the Greeks until the Jews joined them, and as we're going to see, made a condition that they share power and leadership, which we're going to see will last for 28 years. V'hachi isnu v'hadayu. This is what the condition the Romans made, when they made with the Romans, iminan malchi minaichu hafarchi, that if in fact we join you, then our governors will be ours. Basically, we'll be able to run our own thing. Mimanaichu malchi minan hifrachi v'shalchu ramoy oyonoi ad inna. So that's if we're going to join you, but otherwise not. So avidna bikirba, we'll engage in might. Hashan nevid bedina margolias evan toiva ezmehen yasa. So what should be done? So basam l'chavero sholchulu margolias evan toiva. So they sent this precious jewel, says Rashi. So Ramoy Yisrael Bahadaihu Bahachi Isnu Ramoy Yisrael. This is the condition the Romans made to Israel. Iminon, if you're with us, then good. If not, that's not good. Margolius in a chashuv Evan Toiv. So Margolius is not as chashuv as a Evan Toiv. Hashan Evan Bedina Margolius the Evan Toiva Ezmehem Yasa. So like out of the two, which one would you want? So again, the Margolius is not as chashuv as the Evan Toiv. So Basam L'Chavero, so they were setting their friend. Shalchulu Margolius Evan Toiva. Evan Toiva Ezemehen Yasa. Basam L'Chavero Evan Toiva L'Enoch. Enoch v'Sefer Torah Ezemehen Yasa. So between this and the Sefer Torah, which one do you want? So Bas Mechaver Enoch Sefer Torah. So basically, they're saying the Sefer Torah is more choshev. Sholchu leim kain anan Sefer Torah gabon. The Sefer Torah should be bayas. Yisrael b'hadon. So kafluhu esrin b'shis shnin, and they basically for 26 years had power. Kamu b'him nusaihu, and in fact they kept their promise b'hadi Yisrael together with the Yidden. Kan v'elech, however, afterwards ishtabdu b'hu. So at least for 26 years they kept their word, and then afterwards not. So Mikara, originally when the Romans were with the Jews, my Darish, my Darish. So what exactly did the Romans think originally, that they were joining together as an alliance with the Jewish people, not afterwards? So my Darish. So Mikara Darish, originally they darshan the pasuk which says in Bereshis, V'yomer nisa v'neilecha v'yelcha negdecha, that I will travel and go opposite you. So what does that mean? Nesa v'neilcha v'elcha negdecha. This is referring to with Yaakov and Esav. So it sounds like Yaakov and Esav should be able to share greatness, and therefore the Romans and the Yidden should be able to share. And however, the pasuk then says, only right afterwards, Yavar no adoini lifnei avdoi, then why don't you go ahead of me? Vani es nahala leiti l'regel hamalacha asher lefanu l'regel hayoladim adish rebanu el adoini seira. So basically, Yaakov was saying, oh, I understand what you're saying, Esav, we should go together, but the truth is, why don't you go in front of me? Because I have little kids, it's going to be hard for me to travel with all of them. And therefore, they understood that so too, that they represent Edom, so therefore, they should be able to go in front of or to lead over the Yidden. Now, Esem Shishnin, the Kamu Bimunusayu, Bahadi Yisrom Olam. So, how do we know that it was for this period of time that they showed allegiance to the Yidden for 26 years? Yomi Rav Kahana Kishachol Rabbi Yishmael Bar Yosi Shalach Rabbi Amar Lanu. Please tell us, Shnai v'Gimel Devarim, 2 or 3 things, Shemarta Lanu Yisham Avicha, that were said by your father. So Amar said, okay, fine. First of all, Meya b'Shmoinim Shana, 180 years, Kaidam Shenichar Habayas, before the base of Mitzvah was destroyed, Pashtam Malchus HaRishal Yisrael. So the Romans already stretched their hands against the Yidden. Pei Shana, that was already 180 years before the Churban. So again, the Churban was on 70 CE, so already 110 BCE, the Romans already were ruling over us. Pei Shana, so 80 years, Achel Charvabayas, which obviously things got a little bit worse, or a lot worse. So Gazra Tuma al Eretz Amim, so we instituted that any land outside of Eretz Yisrael, out Gush, because of Tuma, that a person automatically became Tameh. That was it. Also about Kli Zechuchas. Also regarding golden glass earthenware, that they also have the ability to become Tameh. Mem Shana ad Charav Abayas, 40 years before the Churban, goes to Sanhedrin. Already Sanhedrin left the Lishkas HaGazas, V'yashalo b'chanus, and they went into this chanus, like Rashi's Makom Bahar Abayas, the chanus Shemo. That was chanus, like a store. But it means they left the Beis HaMikdash, and now they were in a different location. So the question is, what's the difference? They still had Lamai Hilchasa. After all, the Sanhedrin still existed. So what's the difference where they were? So Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Avdimi Lemer Shul Donu Dini Kanasais. They weren't able to do penalties. That's Rashi Oines, Mafate, all these different things, which is Kanas, penalties, or Shoshishul Eved. Shanosna Torah Kitzvo Achas Leikar Uzoywel Me'achas Shel Yashum Belishkas Hagozis Lodonu Ubata Dini Kanasais. So they weren't allowed to do all these different psak. They could do a psak on Dini Mominus, but not a Kanas, because a Kanas is not totally on actual damages. It's the Torah gives a specified amount regardless of the individual. Because when it says by kefil, which I know is a form of kanas, it says asher yashin elokim dehainu mumchim. It says Elokim, which is referring to the judges. They have to be expert judges, which not only does it mean they have to be judges, but also they have to be in the Lishkas HaGazas. So Dini Knasas HaChadaytach, V'yam Rabbi Yehuda Amarav, Barim Zachar so Ish Toiv should be remembered for the good. Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba Shemoi, Shemoi who wasn't for him. Nishtachu Dini Knasas of Israel. All the Dini Knasas would be forgotten. Nishtachu, what do you mean? They'd be forgotten. The Garsinu, just go and learn it. Ela Batlu Dini Knasas Israel. It would be bottle. She goes to Malchus Harisha Gzeira. They made a Gzeira. Kol HaSaimech Yeharag V'Hol Nismach Yehareg. Any person who gets smicha, they wanted to basically outlaw rabbis because they're the ones who are the future of education. So he said anyone who gets smicha will be killed. Anyone who gives smicha will be killed. The Yirhat Shesmuchin Ba Ticharev. Not only that, any city that harbors these criminals, these rabbis, will be destroyed. But Chum Shesmuchin Ba Ya'akir. And even the borders around it will be destroyed. So basically, what are you going to do? It was one thing if, okay, a rabbi will take a chance, or get smicha. That's on you, but if you're going to have a whole city destroyed because of it, it's a big problem. So, she goes to Malchus HaRosh Gezerah, so a terrible Gezerah. So Ma'asa, Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba, so what did he do? Halch v'yashiv ben shnei harim gedolim. He sat between two mountains, ben shnei Yuras gedolos, between two cities, ben based Chumi Shabbos, Ben Usha with Shafra, with Samoch with Sham Chamisha Zakanim. So basically, first of all, he went out in the middle of nowhere, so that there would be no possibility that even if he would get caught or his students would get caught, that it would affect anyone else except for them. And he ended up giving smicha to the greatest of future leaders: Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Lezer ben Shemoah, Rabbi Avia Moisef, and he adds it was after Rabbi Nehemiah. So he gave all these smicha, all these great people who would be the future of the Klal Yisrael. Kivan shekiru behem oivim. Once the enemies heard that they got smicha, Armelahem b'ni, my son, roitzu, basically get out of here. So Armelo Rebbe yatom matehelecha. How about you? So great, I'm telling the students to run. How about you, teacher? Armelahem hareini mutlef nehem ke'evin she'en la hoichin. I am comparable to like a rock, which they there's nothing they can do, right? Well, what are they going to do? So he didn't leave from there. That they end up piercing him with 300 spears, shobars of metal. And his body looked like a sieve, like a sifter. There was so many holes in it. So obviously, this is a great, great man. Yehuda ben Baba literally was moiser nefesh, and he ended up being a martyr. And obviously, this is was a terrible thing. But again, the question is, how could you tell me that that everything was removed? We see that Yehuda ben Baba was able to do this, and everything continued. So how could you tell me that bottle dini kanasa is Israel, that it became bottle? So again, so that's the kash is. So we continue to learn. So Omer Rav Nachman Yitzchak lo tema dini kanasais. So it doesn't mean dini kanasas el shlo donu dini nefashos. It just means that they couldn't do dini nefashos. So dini kanasos they could still do, because as we saw in Rashi, even if they left the Lishkas HaGazas, the criteria actually is Asher Yishin Elokim Denu Mumchin. You have to have someone who has smicha, the smuchin l'shem Rebbe, and you have to have smicha. So there was a problem. Maybe there was no more smicha. It's not true, because Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba saw to it that there still would be smicha, which means those people could still give dini kanasais. That's true, but they dini nefashais stopped. So at that time, 40 years already before the Sanhedrin left. That's true. They left, and right. So and the Sanhedrin left, and there was no more din nefashos. So my time so there was so many killers, they weren't able to do what they were doing. It was It was not a possibility. So Amr Mutav Nigli Mamakam, better we should be exiled from place to place. That we shouldn't be. That nothing should happen. We see that the place is what causes things to happen. Says Rashi, we stop being done in nefashos, even a small Sanhedrin. Says Rashi, in every city, the only time the small Sanhedrin can be done in Roitzchin, din nefashos, is dafka if you have the Sanhedrin Gedoyla, b'yeshivasa. Rashi says, in a set place, v'hu lishkas hagazas. Ataka had to be in the lishkas hagazas, and therefore, since they were moving around, so therefore wasn't shaykh for them to to be done din nefashos. Okay, we're going to stop there in a second. It says Rashi, Amakam Garim L'chayev Hanidoin. V'im Einun Sham Lo Yadanu. If we're not there, can't judge them. V'hai Kral B'din Nefashos Koi. Ki Yiflam Mimcha Davar B'parshas Shayfnim B'shaytrim B'zakin Mamre. So again, it's only when there is a Lishkas Hagazis is it shaykh for us to be able to institute that. Okay. No questions there. Question TA 20 we saw. TB 22 Adkan.